First name Mr., last name Glass. Glass is directed by M. Night Shyamalan and is starring Bruce Willis, Samuel L. Jackson, James McAvoy, Anya Taylor-Joy, and Sarah Paulson. As always, there will not be any plot spoilers in this review, especially for this movie. This is M. Night Shyamalan's sequel to not only Unbreakable, which came out 19 years ago, but also to Split, which came out a couple of years ago, which was a surprising sequel to Unbreakable, or at least was set in the Unbreakable world. And this film, Glass, is now the final film in this Unbreakable trilogy, and this film follows the characters that we know from both Unbreakable in Bruce Willis's David Dunn, as well as Elijah Price, and in Split with James McAvoy's character of the Horde, as well as Anya Taylor-Joy's character of Casey Cook. And in this film, the three main characters are all placed within an asylum, and the Sarah Paulson character is this doctor who is trying to treat them as if all of their powers and all of their uniqueness is within their heads. But when it comes to an M. Night Shyamalan film, there is more than meets the eye, and of course things are going to get a little crazy and a little weird. So once upon a time, before we had all of these big comic book tentpole movie franchises, the MCU, the DCEU, all this kind of stuff, we had Unbreakable. And Unbreakable was this small M. Night Shyamalan film. It was his follow-up to The Sixth Sense, which was a huge big hit, and this film, Unbreakable, was a subversive comic book film. It was almost kind of like a Watchmen, if you will, when it took certain aspects of comic book superheroes and it told the story to us in a much different way. It's a slower film, it's a more plotting film, it's a more thematically rich film, and the film is not about special effects or any type of that stuff, and Glass is very much in tune with that, but it's also very much a direct sequel to Split as well. So what is this film going to entail? Well, this film picks up after the events of Split, and what we have here is a very interesting, uneven film from my perspective. Some people really love this film, some people straight up hate this movie from what I've seen. I'm more in the middle, and I know that's not the best place to be when it comes to opinions or analysis or anything like that, but let's dive into this as much as I can without spoiling anything. This film does deliver certain things to us when it comes to revisiting the David Dunn character. We get to see what he's been up to all these years, what he's up to now, and we also get to see that Elijah Price has been locked up for many, many years in this insane asylum, sedated, because he is this big criminal mastermind. But the Horde is still on the loose. But when all of these characters come together in this asylum, which is kind of the second act of this movie, which many of you have probably seen hinted at from the trailers, is you get a film that slows down, becomes more methodical, becomes more thematically heavy. And by thematically heavy, I mean the main strength of this film for me is its themes that carry over from Split. In Split, you had themes of the other, or themes of this idea that people who are mentally broken or physically broken are unique, are special, and are on the same level or maybe even higher than those who are quote-unquote normal, that don't have that type of baggage in their lives. And what we see is that all of these characters are linked to one another in that regard. They all have this brokenness about them, whether it be physically or mentally, and the film really plays on that theme very heavily. And the film, I think, also builds upon that by saying that it's not only about these quote-unquote comic book superhero type characters, but we can extrapolate that to our own real-life world. Whether it be people who are minorities, people who are part of the LGBTQ community, or anyone who is really persecuted in any way and is seen as lesser. This film is really speaking to them on a certain level, and I think that that's where this film really, really shines. Where I think this film really falters is in its execution overall. M. Night Shyamalan, I think, is a very talented director. His camera work has been fantastic in many of his films, and there are certainly a lot of fantastic camera work in this film. When it comes to the overall plot structure in the film, there's both good and bad, but the third act specifically is where the film is going to be made or broken for many. I know many people who love the third act and many people who don't like it at all. I'm kind of in the middle because I'm interested in this third act. I'm interested in what he did and what he was saying and how it plays into those themes I was just saying. There are moments of this film that are some of the most absurdly contrived and laughably contrived things I've ever seen written in a film recently. It's almost small, nitpicky things, but they're so obvious and so annoying that I can't help but feel like, really, you really had to do that in order to get us to go in a certain direction. And a lot of that happens towards the middle and I would say the second half of the middle act. And those things really bother me, especially when it has to do with all of these characters in this really super psychiatric hospital. There are certain actions that they do that they probably shouldn't be allowed to do. I don't want to say what they did specifically because I don't want to give any plot spoilers away, but it really bothered me because it became repetitive. It took me out of the movie. It took me out of the experience, and when it comes to the overall acting in this film, I think the acting is overall really good, but the standout, someone who's operating, I think, on a completely other level, is James McAvoy. Carrying over from his amazing acting performance in Split, he is even better in this film, I think. He is switching between different multiple personalities within scenes, within sentences, and it's just amazing at what he's able to do. Samuel L. Jackson slips right back into his manipulative, conniving role as Elijah Price. He is fantastic as well. And Bruce Willis is trying in this film, trying harder than I've seen Bruce Willis try in recent films that he has been in, but there's some times where I just don't feel like he's entirely there. And it also has to do with he's not given a lot to do in this film, which is really frustrating if you are a big Unbreakable fan and really wanted to see him flex some muscle and have a lot of things to do. So with all of those things being said, I'm going to give this film a 3.5 out of 5 stars. Like I said, it's right in the middle for me. There are certain things in this film I really liked a lot, certain things I didn't like that much or really at all. But I have to say, if you are a fan of Unbreakable and Split and really want to see how this whole thing comes to an end, you have to watch this film. Stay away from any spoilers with any type of twist or anything like that when it comes to the third act of this film, which I really can't get into at all. That has been my review of Glass. If you like this video, please check out the other videos on my channel.